Welcome back. This is Module 3, and together with Module 4, we're going to focus on the body. This work is really about understanding and guiding our nervous system, the central driver of our physiology, noticing how our body's reacting and responding to the world around us. This approach is sometimes called the bottom-up approach, how the body informs the head, or how the nervous system impacts our thinking. It focuses on different states that the body goes into and how we experience the world in these different states. In the Western world, we think we're rational beings, and we often try to think our way through a situation. But we're really not. We're fundamentally emotional beings. We're not a head on a stick. We are attached to a body. What may surprise you is that most of our messaging actually comes from our body, bottom up, not from our head, top down. Our thoughts are often just there to create meaning from what our body is telling us. And it doesn't always do this correctly, but we'll deal with that in later modules. If we aren't particularly in tune with our body and what it's telling us, it may have to be screaming at us before we even realise things aren't okay. Western education isn't brilliant at teaching us how to befriend our body. And experiences such as trauma may lead us to even disconnect from our body. The following modules are about improving our listening skills and strengthening that connection to our body so we can offer our nervous system what it needs to feel safe and calm. So before we get into the theory of it all, here's a little practice. I'm going to play through a deck of photos. I invite you to just observe what comes up for you in your body. There's no right or wrong. You may feel nothing at all, or you may feel mild or intense feelings, maybe some surprising feelings. This is just an exercise for you to take time out to listen to your body and observe how it responds to the stimulus. Welcome back. What did you notice? Maybe you didn't notice anything at all. Maybe you were really aware of the sorts of feelings you had as you went through that deck. Maybe it was a mix of something and nothing. If there's any sensation that particularly struck you, just take the time to capture that somewhere. And now I invite you to just take some deep breaths to reset. Let those pictures go, and let's move on. In this module, we'll explore our physiology. One approach that's used in body work and that I use with my clients is an approach called the polyvagal theory. This theory was proposed by Stephen Porges back in 1994 and explains how the autonomic nervous system affects our experience of being alive, how our bodies respond to real or perceived threats. The autonomic nervous system controls involuntary bodily functions without conscious thought. It adapts dynamically to its environment without our input. It regulates bodily functions such as heart rate, digestion, immune system, and our respiratory rate, all totally out of our awareness. We're not telling it to do these things. It's an unconscious response, and it's 24/7, adapting to what's around us externally and also what's going on internally. It's taking on board the information, data, energy, call it what you want, both inside and outside of it, such as what we've just eaten or drunk, or the temperature or level of light in the room. And so, welcome to your autonomic nervous system, one that's working all the time outside of your awareness. So how does this physiological response impact our emotional health? The number one job of this system is simply to keep our body functioning effectively, and therefore keep us alive. It's constantly dynamically changing to make sure we're okay. And if we are okay, we are safe. This includes our ability to read other people quickly. And this has kept our species going, but also creates a breeding ground of misunderstanding. Safe is a physiological state that in turn creates feeling and thinking. If our nervous system is okay, we feel okay. If it detects a threat and feels unsafe, anxious, agitated, on edge, we may start to have more unhelpful thoughts about the world around us. Our autonomic nervous system is constantly assessing how safe we are, and in turn, how safe we think we are. Professor Porges calls this autonomic process neuroception, and it happens without us having any idea that it's happening. What today's work is about is it's changing this from neuroception to perception, out of our awareness to into our awareness. And once we are aware, we can do something about it. We have more power. Another important aspect of the polyvagal theory is what's called the hierarchy of states. And Rocky is going to illustrate the states in more detail. The polyvagal theory revolves around the polyvagus nerve, which has distinct pathways that get activated in the body. In very simple terms, it's made up of two channels, the parasympathetic system and the sympathetic system, and each channel controls different areas. The activation leads to three distinct states the body can be in, and you could say these states are on a dial from mild to severe. The one at the bottom here is known as the dorsal vagal state. I call it the cave. This is the oldest system shared with reptiles, and it sits below the diaphragm. This is a survival state, and it's activated by a huge life threat or an ongoing drain on life safety, such as ongoing stress. When this system is activated, we may feel very numb, flat, shut down. It causes us to retreat. In an extreme and ongoing case, it might be something like burnout or chronic depression. Or in an acute case, it could be something like fainting or disassociation, where our body goes, nope, I don't want to be here right now. In a more mild case, it's coming home from work or school and thinking, oh, I've got nothing left, I'm done in, my social battery's dead. And we might go to the loo and just hide away for a bit and not respond to anyone. And then everything in between, that kind of flop, numb, withdrawal, flatness, where our body is letting us know we don't have enough resources. We need to regroup, to replenish, to recharge. I call it the cave state because it can be a very isolated state that we retreat to get away from stimuli or people. Here we have little to no thinking ability. We may as well chop our head off completely. You get home from work and think, what do I want for tea? Nope, no idea. I can't even make that decision anymore. I'm done. So it can be a very flat, numb state. And it can be in a very mild form or quite an extreme form. If you imagine your body for a moment covered in fairy lights, it's almost like the vagus nerve has decided that we need to dial down all the fairy lights for a while. We need to conserve our energy or find some way of recharging the power back up again. In extreme cases, it's almost like they just get switched off. So this is the dorsal state, state 3, or the blue state, or, as I call it, the cave. Moving on up, we get to the middle area of the body, state 2. This red state is part of the sympathetic nervous system. This is another survival response activated when our body feels under threat. It's the more well-known survival state, the fight, flight, freeze or fawn response. It's very primal and activated by the body's perception that there's either a threat or a challenge ahead, and we need to do something about it. Either run, attack, stay put, or do what the threat wants. Physiologically, it has a major change in our body as it gets ready to act. Our blood's being pumped to our major muscles. We have increased heart rate, increased adrenaline, increased cortisol. Our hearing changes, our eyesight changes. We feel more disconnected from people because we're feeling under threat, possibly from people. One of our greatest threats is other people, so our sense of connection, remember that foundation, can get ruptured in this state. We can feel very anxious, agitated, restless, intolerant of others. Our body diverts our energy towards the emergency survival systems on this sympathetic line and away from our parasympathetic, known as the rest and digest systems. It turns down some of those autonomic systems such as digestion, immunity, and temperature. It's only meant to be a short-term experience, so our physical health can start to suffer if we're in this mode for too long. We might tend to catch more colds or viruses. We might start to get eczema or psoriasis or IBS and tummy problems because that rest and digest system that supports these functions has been dialed down or even switched off in order to power the threat system up. It's a really important state. We definitely want it. It helps keep us alive, but we do not want to be in it for very long. It's a knock in, sort out the threat, come back out again type state. The same as the dorsal vagal, go in the cave, replenish, come back out. So we need to be aware of both what state we're in, but also how long we're in it for. When we're in this state, it works with the emotional thinking part of our brain, called the amygdala. And we'll look at this in more detail in later modules. I'm just linking it now so that you can start to see why our thinking, and therefore experience of the world, can change dramatically depending on what state our nervous system is in. And finally, we have state 1, this upper state, the green area. This is the ventral vagal state and what I call the safe state. In evolution terms, this is the newest system out of all of these 3 states, and it's activated when we feel safe and when we feel connected. So if we go back to our foundations, that sense of connection we know is so important to help bring our nervous system down. And how, when we feel disconnected, that can be one of the main causes of increased anxiety or feeling unsafe. Cultivating a feeling of connection with people helps us move into this ventral vagal state, promoting calm, communication, and creativity. When in this state, we use facial expression more, we use eye contact more, our vocal tone changes, we connect differently with others, and our body language is more open. It engages that parasympathetic activity in the body again, which helps regulation and rest and digestion. When we're in this state, we're working with a part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex. We'll go into this in more detail in later modules, but in a nutshell, means we're able to make decisions better. We're able to think things through, articulate better, and communicate better. Language sits in this part of the brain, so we need to get into state 1 to be able to talk things through or have a voice. We cannot do this in state 2 or 3, so always find a calm state if you need someone to hear you and understand you. It's also why high emotion arguments are so unsuccessful and unhelpful. When we're in state 1, we're not necessarily thinking, yeah, the world's wonderful, we're skipping around, everything's lovely. But we do have this background sensation of, I have what I need to get through. And this may not be something within us. We may not think I have all the resources within me, but I do have the scaffolding around me, other people or other strategies or things that I can lean on or use. I have what I need, or I'll be able to get what I need. As opposed to being in state 2, where it can be very different and we may think, I don't have what I need, I don't have enough. So the state we're in can profoundly impact how we feel about the situation we're in. Now, this is obviously a whistle-stop tour of these states, and if you do want to do a deeper dive into this theory, there are some links at the end of the module. There's absolutely no need to remember the clinical names of any of these states. You may want to rename them yourself rather than use the names I've used or the clinical names. Or you may just call them 3, 2, 1, or by the colours, blue, red, green. What is important now is to move from this universal, general understanding to a more personalised understanding. So, your exercise for this module is to explore your own personal experience of each state. And by this I mean your body's experience. Try and take your thinking out of it, no thoughts. Just notice what sensations and signals are coming from your body. How do you know what state you're in? What are the clues or the signals? What does it feel like for you to be stressed? What does it feel like to be calm? Have you ever felt calm? You can also think about your behaviour in these states. So bodily signals mean the internal ones, the sensations, the feelings, but also the external, the movements. What is your body doing? Are you more jittery? Do you randomly pick stuff up and put it down? Do you use your hands more the more nervous you get, or the safer you feel? Maybe there's somebody in your world that could let you know what they see. They might be able to tell you what they see when you're stressed, or what they see when you're calm. What are the clues that they see? It can be really helpful to have a third party's observation on these things, because when we're in it, we're not really taking note of how we're behaving. It's just very automatic. So any feedback can be really useful information and more clues for you to know what state you're in. Then log these observations. You can draw Rocky out and log them on your model, as we have done here. Or if you prefer, you could write them in a journal or on your phone, etc. But as mentioned in the first module, please get them out of your head. Don't just think, yep, I know all my signals. Our heads are not great databases. Record them elsewhere, and preferably with any other notes that you're taking. So, that's your task for this module, to notice and note the signals in your states. Take your time, get as much info as possible. And in the next module, we'll look at moving between these states, how we modify them. But in order to do this successfully, we need to first recognise them. And so this is the monitoring part, and the building self-awareness is so vital. You cannot get yourself into safe state if you don't know what state you're in to begin with, or what safe state feels like. See you next time.